Hi, and welcome to another episode of Tea Time. As always, thank you so much for checking out my channel. Please like and subscribe. Today we're going to be tackling the topic of emotional intelligence. Very, very important aspect of intellect that you want to try to master. For the simple fact that number one, these tools we're going to go over are just excellent to have in your everyday life. Somebody that you'll hear me reference often, Jordan Peterson. I love what he talks about. But he just mentions that we as humans can limit human suffering if we were to build better relationships with people and network. So, having good emotional intelligence is one way in which that we can all do that. So, emotional intelligence essentially is the ability to understand and process and control your emotions. An American psychologist named Daniel Goleman was the one who really studied this concept hard and popularized it, and essentially is broken down into five major components: self awareness, self regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So we're going to take a minute, roughly about 2 minutes for each point. Want to try to keep the video short and sweet because, of course, you can always do your own research into emotional intelligence. Purpose of this video is just to hit you with the basics of it, give you some things to understand and hopefully work on to improve your interpersonal skills as well as improve your career. So the first thing is self-awareness. We all have known somebody or been friends with somebody who is just a complete idiot and they think they're Albert Einstein. Or we have somebody who, maybe thinks they're the next Michael Jordan and they step onto a basketball court and, can't even make a free throw. We've all been around individuals like that. So self awareness essentially just having an accurate, intelligent, honest view of yourself. This is very important. If you know you're a hothead, be self aware, be humble enough to admit it, because then that will help you work on it. Like they say in AA or any type of, abuse help platform, they tell you the first step in overcoming addiction is to first acknowledge that you have an addiction. So that same principle can be applied with any behavioral characteristic that's undesirable, is to first be willing to admit that you have it. So once you do that, then you can move on to the next key, which is self-regulation. So the idea of self-regulation, I'm just going to highlight a quick point from this article, that discusses it. It mentions that leaders who regulate themselves effectively rarely verbally attack others, make rushed or emotional decisions, stereotype people, or compromise their values. Self regulation is all about staying in control. So, this is important because you can't self regulate if you don't know what you're regulating. That's why that self awareness part is so key. So, in life, we all wish that we had, like a video game controller where you hit start and then you hit, replay or start over. We don't have that luxury as human beings, in this reality that we live in. But we do have an opportunity to hit the pause button. So the pause button is important. Let's say that you are someone who grew up in the streets or, you grew up in the hood and you're used to that respect me or else, or, you got to check somebody. And now, you're an adult, you were smart enough to get out of that element, but you still struggle with that. So someone in your office environment says something that's disrespectful. Well, if you're self-aware to know that you have a short trigger based on the environment that you grew up in. So if somebody says something stupid to you, hit the pause button. Take a few seconds to really think about, okay, wait a minute, this is a trigger for me. So instead of, responding violently or, verbally attacking that individual, smile, and walk away. Or if you feel you have to address it, just in a polite way, say, listen, you and I are here to try to work. This is a professional environment. I'm always professional and kind with you. All I ask is that you do the same in return. Let's say that you're an individual who's overly sensitive. Let's say you grew up in a household where maybe your parents weren't the nicest to you. They always talked down to you. So you have a trigger now where anytime you perceive somebody is making fun of you, or perceive that somebody is like saying something mean, your natural reaction is just to break down crying. Well, again, it's going to be difficult in the workplace, because if you're a supervisor, let's say he's a man, and he says to you, Susie, this work is unacceptable, we need to do better. What's going to happen is that emotional trigger, that childhood trauma, as we mentioned in previous videos, you're going to just subliminally view him as that mean dad of yours that always was mean to you. And you might start breaking down crying. That may be a trigger. So again, hit the pause button. When you start feeling emotional, start feeling that quiver, like you're ready to start crying, hit the pause button. Think about your career. Think about the fact you want to be respected in the office, and think about the fact that this supervisor is not your dad. The supervisor is just an individual who sees performance that he doesn't view as acceptable. He wants you to improve, and then just take a deep breath and then respond in kind. Thanks for making me aware of that. I know I need to get better with these numbers. You know, let's work together to figure out a game plan to get me where I need to be. As my supervisor, I'm sure you're experienced. What suggestions or what game plan can you help put together for me to improve? So these are all examples of self-regulation. Just hit the pause button when you feel these triggers start to build up. The next point we're going to discuss is motivation. So motivation essentially is, what is your personal brand? What is your motto? What do you stand for? My mom used to always tell me, if you don't know what you're willing to die for, you don't know what you're willing to live for. So whether that be, I'm an individual who wants to be the personification of kindness. I believe in the Judeo-Christian principles of treating people the way they want to be treated. Then that way, when you're in a situation where your temper or emotions flare up, think back to the motivation of that brand or mantra that you have. Or let's say you're more in the Eastern realm of religion, or you're consider yourself a spiritual person. We've all heard the idea of karma, or the idea of the law of attraction. So again, if you put negative things out, if you put negative vibrations, or if you put negative energy or hate into the universe, so to speak, then you can expect that to return back on you. So that motivation, that personal brand, it's essentially the equivalent of, let's say, and especially right now, it's applicable. We're in mid-February. Everyone's got their New Year's resolutions. Everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute, a couple months until bathing suit season. So every time you're tempted to get that 2 for $6 at McDonald's, you're like, no, I'm not going to do it, because I'm trying to drop, 10, 15 pounds before, May or June hits. So I got the six pack right. Or if you're, one of the ladies, you want to rock that two piece. So that motivation helps you to make that sacrifice, or that motivation helps you go to the gym and push yourself, because you're visually looking at yourself and what you would become with a balanced diet and hitting the gym. So that analogy works with your mantra. All of us should stand for something, and what we stand for will help us to control our emotions when we're in a situation that may be trying. So next up on our emotional intelligence, our EQ, is empathy. So empathy is something where it should come natural to most humans. Nobody sees a homeless person on the side of the road and gets excited. Oh, yay, they're homeless. That means there's more resources for me. Whenever we see commercials, looking for people to make donations to, cancer awareness or finding a cure, nobody sees a cancer patient on TV and says, yay, they have cancer, or who cares, they have cancer. I don't care about cancer. Anyone that you met that would say that, you would think they were an evil person. And if there is a hell, there's a special place they would be going. Us normal people, when we see homeless people, we feel bad. We think about it, especially in the wintertime. They're out in the cold, they don't have food. Or we think about cancer. Most of us know someone or has a friend or family member who has passed away from cancer. It's a horrible, horrible disease, and we hate the fact that it exists, i.e., government, please release it. Oops, did I say that? So the point is that when you have empathy, it's understanding and having the opportunity to take a moment to think about how we talk to someone, how we react to someone. If we were them, how would we want to be talked to? How would we want to be interacted with? And it's sad because empathy is something that we really shouldn't have to talk about, but a lot of times people do lack it. Quick example, the company I worked for when I very first started out with the company, I was in a call center environment and we would calibrate these calls for, the good, bad, and the ugly and everything in between. There was an individual who was talking to one of my teammates and explaining, hey, I can't pay the bill for my insurance this week. I just lost my job. My wife is sick. I'm going through a lot. And the associate said, okay. So the point is we can get so caught up in the normal routine of life that we could be like that associate of mine that just said, okay. A normal person would say, you know what? That's horrible. I'm very sorry you're going through that. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to help you. But he just said, okay. So again, that can be all of us. We want to make sure, even when it comes to if you have kids, your kids are upset about something, practicing empathy. If your significant other brings up something, you will want to practice empathy. And then that will bleed itself into your career. Because again, as the old saying goes, those who are faithful in what is least will be faithful in what is great. So if we're an asshole or a jerk to our kids, our friends, our significant others, we can't just wish to snap our fingers, go to work, and then think we're going to be Mr. Rogers. It's not going to happen. Lastly is social skills. What I'll leave off with social skills boils down to one concept: conflict resolution. I'll repeat it: conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is about people being on different sides and then meeting in the middle. And how you meet in the middle is that both individuals have to give up something. So you're aligned, you come together, and you give up something for the greater good of reaching a mutual agreement. We have way too many people that have the attitude, I want it my way, or that's it, the highway. We live in an era now where everything is about instant gratification. Everybody is so focused on do me, and I get it. We have our predecessors, baby boomer generation, and especially, um, you know, certain people back then, they just kind of let people walk all over them. And we live in a more vocal generation now. So with that being said, just because you have self-respect and you don't want to allow individuals to walk all over you, that doesn't mean that you still can't execute conflict resolution. So quick example, let's say that you and a friend are deciding where you want to go on vacation. Your friend is like, you know what, I really just want to be near water. I love the sound of water, I love being in water, let's go to the beach. And you're like, no, I don't. I'd rather be in the mountains. I'd rather go hiking. So both of you decide, well, I guess we're not friends. You're not my friend. You don't want to listen to what I have to say. So I guess we're not taking any trip at all. Well, conflict resolution would be analyzing the situation. So you have friend A who wants to go to the mountains, friend B who wants to be near water. So discuss, what is it about these two things do you like, are we really looking for? Because you can be in water and be near water without being at the beach. And you can experience mountains without, you can experience nature and hiking without necessarily going to the mountains. So one friend could say, hey, you know what? How about we combine hiking and nature in one? There's a lot of beautiful national parks in Florida, like the Everglades. We could go check that out. Or you could say, you know what, maybe we can go to Colorado. They got hot springs there. You can be in some geothermal hot springs, get in that water, or maybe find a nice resort with an outdoor heated pool. So just being able to find ways to collaborate, conflict resolution, that's how you figure out your scope, your social skills. And also just having an economy of words. There's more than one way to say something. As I've talked about in my episode about dealing with a bad boss, if somebody is doing something that you don't like, you don't have to call them an idiot. You don't have to tell them they're stupid or they suck. You could just simply say, hey, this particular behavior, doesn't bode well with me. I would expect behavior X, Y, and Z instead. So just figuring out, and honestly, I know it may sound silly, but just look at read the dictionary. I think we're so busy in this modern day and age with hashtag this, say less, facts, all of these different slang that we really have lost accountability of what the English language is. So honestly, I would take on a project, even if you say once a week, I'm going to read 2 pages in the dictionary and just start taking down words that are synonyms of words you use every day. It makes you more intelligent, it helps you communicate better, and it just goes a long way. Telling individuals that they suck versus, hey, here's an area of opportunity that, we can work on together. Or, I noticed that, when you do X, Y, and Z, you have a difficult time doing it. Let me show you some ways that have worked for me. So there's different ways in which we can talk to people. So just to recap from our list, emotional intelligence, 5 categories: self-awareness, that's knowing who you are, having a personal, internal, honest discussion with your weaknesses. Self-regulation, once you figured out those weaknesses, hit that pause button metaphorically, know what your triggers are, respond to them. 3, motivation, have a personal brand, know what you stand for. That way you can come back to that when you feel tempted to break that brand. 4, empathy, treat people the way you want to be treated, put yourself in their shoes. And social skills, focus on conflict resolution, 2 people giving up something to come in alignment, and increase your vocabulary. Learn how to say things to people that's polite and respectful versus telling it like it is. Well, that's today's episode of Tea Time. Please like and subscribe, comment, let me know what you want to hear me cover in the future. We got a great interview coming up soon, so stay tuned. Be well.